Yo! Welcome to the third episode of the Coconut Podcast, everybody.
I'm Izuru.
And I'm Vihan.
Pretty much, so we're on an Airbnb right now, as you can tell. Had to up our studio budget. Unfortunately, the budget didn't get up too much, and there's some like humming noise that we can hear. We don't know where it's coming from, and like he emailed like the owner and shit, and she's got no clue either. So unless we find a way to edit that out, you guys might have to put up with that just for this video.
So try and just tune it out.
Yeah, please. Hopefully over time it will become easier, more bearable. But we just wanted to let you guys know about that and apologize for the inconvenience in advance. Did you want to talk about the shout out stuff?
Yeah, we want to thank everybody who gave us suggestions and input from the last Law of Attraction video. We had a lot of people messaging and give us their take on it. They gave us a lot of suggestions on how to improve the next episode as well. Thank you so much for your suggestions and input. It means so much, and definitely opened my eye up to a whole nother range of possibilities for the Law of Attraction, which I didn't think of previously. So thank you.
And we'll post the things up, the stories up. So if you guys want to read it, just pause the video and you can give that a read.
And you can still send stuff in, like if you want to send stuff from the first episode, second episode, whatever. Send it through if you want to see.
Slap it on.
Yeah.
One of the videos.
And we'll just chuck in the next one.
Yeah, 100%. What else? Oh yeah. Also, look, we really appreciate the support that you guys have given us. Following the page, subscribing to YouTube, like it's pretty crazy, bro. Like the amount of views and everything, like it means a lot. And yeah, pretty much we just want to say thank you, and share it, like it, all that fun stuff. If your friends need to see some of the videos, send it to them. If you guys need someone to chat with, message, whatever,
Always here.
the Coconut Podcast is here. Reply speed is pretty bad.
It's pretty shocking.
I will get there eventually.
So this episode is episode 3, and today we're going to be loosely basing this episode on happiness, but it's more going to be a free-flowing one, like I said. A lot of just random thoughts. We brought in points of just evolutionary happiness, biology, chemistry, evolution, religion, our parents, our experience, a whole bunch of things. So definitely worth the watch, right?
Thank you, and we hope you guys enjoy the video. All right,
Enjoy.
that's a move. That's a transition.
That's it.
Sweet.
We'll get straight to it. So episode 3 is going to be about happiness. This was it sent in by someone, or?
I think it was. Oh, actually, I'm not sure. But either way, that's the topic.
This is what we've come to.
So hopefully we can give a bit of a. I think today I really want to just really engage with like evolutionary psychology of happiness and what it means to us today, what it is, what it's not. And maybe, we might find an answer maybe together. And we'd love to hear some of your answers to happiness, or how you guys have found happiness in your day-to-day lives as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll open it up to you. First question.
Easy.
You ready? Alright, so first question is, what is happiness to you? How would you describe it? So if I come up to you on the street with a gun to your head and I said, what is
Definitely not dying,
what
bro.
is happiness? What are you saying, bro?
To me, look, honestly, I think it's something that I honestly don't have the answer to right now. I don't know what happiness is, but I know what it's not, or I know what it's not found in. There's been, like, for me, something that I've realized. This might be a very long explanation, and you might go into, I don't know, but so for me personally, it took me a while to realize this, but I found that I have a very extreme personality. So that means that when I start thinking one way or something like that, then I become fully focused on that. I have to, and up until recently, you know, I had no balance per se. If I was focused on just one thing, that would be it. And with that, throughout my life, I've chased many avenues of happiness, you know, and all of them have been have ended in, I guess, futility. They haven't ended. Like I didn't find happiness at the end of it, I guess. So, and I think that's what a lot of people, like, that's pretty much human life, you know. We just do things that make us happy. Why do we eat? Because it makes us happy, or it makes us feel comfortable, right? But yeah, for me personally, look, I'll be the first to say it, like for a while I chased the sesh, cause I thought it would make me happy, right? Like, and it did for a while, as in, like, it was a temporary happiness. You know, you'd smoke up or whatever, and then for 2-3 hours you're happy, or you think you're happy, but you're not. You know, it comes back down, and then you're left in a place where you're still searching. You know, so then maybe that's what leads to addiction, and maybe we'll talk about that, I guess, going further into the video as well. But you know, so it started from there. I've chased money in order to find happiness, but it's not there either, you know. I think, like, there's a human condition of us never knowing when something's enough, if that makes sense, right? Like, if we have $5, then we want 10. If we have 10, we want 100. If we have 100, we want 1,000,000, and it goes on. Like, you're never gonna find happiness if you're expecting a result, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's happened with, you know, the sesh, money, power. You know, like, the more you chase these external things, it's the less likely you are to find it.
It's like a journey with no destination.
Exactly, 100%. Like, you're just driving and you don't know where you're going. There's no maps. You don't have anything in mind, but you think that it will make you happy, right? I don't think that happiness is found externally. I think it's found internally, or it's a mindset. That's the kind of conclusion that I've come to right now, and I still haven't found that exact mindset, I don't think, but I've found out that it's not based on material things, right? Like, for example, especially in, like, the West, like Western societies, right? Like Australia, America, all these kind of countries, it's very materialistic. So we base our happiness based on what we have, rather than the state of our mind, right? You see people with buying houses on houses and cars on cars and chains and like designer clothes and all this shit, but they're still unhappy, right? Because the thing is that when you buy, or when you think that will make you happy, it doesn't, right? It's only got it's such a temporary sense of fulfillment that you gain from things that are outside of us. It's like think of it like there's a hole in our chest, right? And you're trying to fill it with shit from the outside, but no matter how much you fill it, it's like a void. So no matter how much you try to fill it, it'll never be filled, right? You can buy a house, and then you want to buy another. Like, once you buy that house, you think, oh, I'm happy now. But then you have to pay the loan and stuff, and then you think, oh, once I pay this loan, then I'll be happy. But then you finish paying the loan, and then you buy another, like a second house. Why? It's the human condition to keep hoarding shit that we don't actually need, and it's because we're forever chasing an external sense of happiness. And yeah, I think that happiness is found inside of us rather than outside of us. If we can manage to plug that void with our mindset, if that makes sense. So and maybe that's gratitude. I think gratitude definitely plays a big part in what happiness is. You know, when you're grateful for things, then you don't take anything for granted. Nothing is owed to us, if that makes sense. And that's not, I don't want to say that in a grim way or anything. That's just the realist, like the situation, right? We're not owed anything. We're not owed another day. We're not owed, you know, like dinner. We're not owed anything. But when we start taking things, I deserve this. I need this. This is, you know, like of course this has to happen to me. That kind of thing. Then you're left with a lot of disappointment because you never deserved it in the first place. Like, it's just about being super grateful for what you have. I think that really plays a part, and also, maybe that's why, you know, we see like people have, like, no matter how much money you have, people have like depression, anxiety, all these negative like feelings that come with life. And it's like, if happiness was found in material, like in money or in houses or in fame, then why are these superstars, you know, going through depression and popping pills and finding a way to kind of divert their attention and escape? Yeah, 100%.
No matter how much money you have, you can't buy your way out of depression and sadness. It's just an impossible game to play. It's something that you have to. It's a mental game, to put it the most simple way.
Yeah, and maybe that's why, like, look, I can't speak to the happiness of people in like poor countries and stuff, but I think there's a greater sense of gratitude, greater sense of fulfillment that they have. They might not have much materially, but their mindset, they're happy, you know, that they're smiling, they're free, they're liberated, because like I was trying to say earlier, not in the best way possible, but I guess the more material, like the more things that we try to hoard, the more paranoid and the more like it's a burden, right? Like if you don't have anything, then you're not attached, and if you're not attached, then you can't hurt you. Nothing can hurt you. You know what I
That's
mean?
a crazy thing. Like, imagine some child in Africa who's like 15 years old or something, hasn't had a thing since they were born, and you bring them to Australia, and they become friends with another 15-year-old. Can you imagine how much happiness and like appreciation they would have for the smallest things? Like, I've seen videos of kids playing with like sticks and tires on the road, and the smile on their faces is, you can't beat that shit. And then you see kids here whining about getting the wrong iPad model, and it's like, damn, like, where do we go wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not for me to say that I haven't had or like tried to find happiness in material things as well. Still do. It's like it's an inevitable game sometimes. Like, when you have hobbies and passions, sometimes you have to diverge into material things as well. But, what was I saying?
Fulfillment with like kid in Africa, finding being
just
grateful.
finding gratitude. Like it does depend a lot on your upbringing, but it's not something that you can like. It's never too late. Is the way I would say it. It's never too late to find appreciation for the things you have right now, and not be expecting other things to come to you just because you're doing like partaking in a certain action, or like you're treating someone a certain way. Just appreciate what you're getting right now, and that way, if you get anything more than that, it's just a bonus.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, and I think like when we say, or when I say at least, that, you know, happiness isn't found in material things, that doesn't mean like that we don't consume material goods, nor does it mean that like I won't I hate people that do it or anything like that. It's not like that. It's just about being mindful of the fact that if you think that, you know, buying this shirt or this Gucci tie or Gucci shoes or whatever the fuck it is will make you happy, it's just about being mindful that it most likely won't, you know what I mean? And like, I think in a lot of the times what I've seen like now, maybe this is like in our parents' generation as well, you know, like you think that, oh, I need a bigger house to show that I've got more money, right? It becomes about symbols of wealth rather than having wealth. And it's like you're trying to prove to everyone else that you're happy, or that you have something that they want or whatever, right? So like, and you're hoping that kind of, and I think it's more like in their subconscious as well. They're not actively being like, oh yeah, like maybe if I show other people, then I'll be like then it looks like I'm happy, right?
It is a very subconscious thing, man. Like even in the fucking BCs, like when humans were coming up, having material possessions was a way of showing that you own a lot of things. You're the chief. You have all these things over the other people in your tribe, right? So it's a very ingrained thing in our brains. That's why it's not an easy thing to just like snap your fingers and just go on.
Exactly.
It's very deeply ingrained in us.
Yeah, and like I was telling, like we were talking about this like yesterday, how like we think we're so far from that caveman or that tribalistic person, when really it's only been like 300-400 years, not even even like 200 years ago, you would have been like, what the fuck, cunts run like horse carriages and shit, and you're just like, damn bro, what's going on here? But like we're not that far from what we used to be. Like internally, we're still that exact primate that we were. You know what I mean? So, like a lot of the time, our physical happiness and what our brain wants us to do, and what our higher consciousness knows. Does that kind of make sense? Like what we know won't make us happy. We're still chasing like the purely instinctual forms of happiness. If that makes sense. Like so like I'll explain it to you as well. And like so pretty much. So there's a guy called Mark Wright. He's an author, and he talks a lot about like evolutionary psychology, tribalism, and the shit that he talks about is super interesting. I'll leave a link to one of his books and stuff in the bio if I find it. But yeah, pretty much he talks a lot about like evolutionary psychology, and one point that he makes is that so from a guy's perspective, as a primate living. Primate by I mean like not even caveman, just like BC type man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, like as a BC type man, pretty much the thing that you're trying to do. Our whole purpose as primates, or as just as a species, was to spread our genes, right? And the only way to do that was so initially it was just by strength. If you survive, then you have a higher chance of spreading your genes. Even the fact that we eat or sleep or drink or do anything, surviving was just so that we could get laid and spread our genes. That was our whole purpose, and that's the only reason that we're here, flourishing like this now, right? If we didn't have the urge to fuck, right? If sex was painful, and we were just turned off from it, and we never did it, like if it was painful as a whole,
It's purely evolutionary.
it's purely like the pleasure and stuff that we gain is purely evolutionary because it's what kept us alive. Same thing with eating food, like and this is the kind of happiness that I mean as well, right? Like you find happiness in having sex, or you find happiness in eating or whatever, right? But you do it too much, and it's just like it'll lead. That's all primate wise. Like our consciousness kind of knows better. Does that make sense? But yeah, anyway, so at the start it was all about like strength and whatnot in order to get laid, right? Yeah, so the whole point of like the male was to get a woman, and therefore they could engage in sex, and therefore they could have children and spread their genes, right? And at one point it became less about the physical, just the raw physical strength, and when culture and language and art and all that stuff was introduced, and kind of our brain became less about eat, kill, fuck, and it became more about expressing ideas and like more politics and stuff involved. And this is like tribalism at its peak, right? Like like tribe, like inter-tribe politics and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It became about status, right? And in order to like more status meant that you had a higher chance of getting laid, right? And therefore spreading your genes, and that's what we're kind of primed to do. And the thing is that even in today's society, we still see so status has become less about hierarchy, I think, or maybe it's still it's still got hierarchy, but I think it's become like wealth can buy you status.
Yeah.
At a certain point, that's what happened. Like we started realizing that if I have money, then I can get social acceptance, and if I and this is shit that like is in our subconscious, right? We don't know why we do these things until you're mindful of the reason, right? It just feels natural because it is natural. It's how we were just made from like a biological perspective, right? We think that, and this might be why we chase wealth and we chase status and we chase fame and affection and love and all these things, right? Because the whole love and affection that gets you laid, right? That's pretty much, and that lets us. And this is from a purely physical, like.
So is that? Do you think that's how it is right now?
I think so. So I think that that kind of shit is still in us. We just don't realize. So
we found like other reasons to cover it up.
Exactly, and or like we just haven't like looked too deep within ourselves.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? To
Yeah,
kind of realize what is actually like who's controlling who is what I'm trying to say, right? Is it us controlling our body, or is it like our primal shit just controlling us, and we think that this is natural, and it is natural, but yeah. So pretty much like at a certain point, it became money gets you status gets you laid. And so even now in today's society, we still see, you know, we're chasing status, we're chasing fame, we're chasing wealth, right? And we think that will make us happy, and that, but it actually won't. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say is that this whole thing is biologically led, because if we don't keep chasing for it, then from a evolutionary perspective, then we'd cease to exist. Because if we didn't chase any avenue in order to get laid, you know, whether that's through money, whether that's through fame, whether that's through whatever, then we'd cease to exist.
So it's like so it's a lot more like an adaptive thing. Like for example, like you said, in the big cities, you didn't have to flex your money because you don't have money, right? You don't have to flex your money to procreate. But today, some people find that they do have to.
But I think that money is what's used to show your status, and status is what gets you laid. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh, yeah.
I think from like a evolutionary perspective, that's one of the main. Like we don't even know why we do it, but we just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
Like
Why? So what do you think is the benefit of being conscious about that?
I think so maybe so it's just like knowing that this is not a ploy, I guess, but kind of that we're chasing these things, like we're thinking that it'll make us happy because that's what we were primed to think from our DNA, like our ant, like you know, like on a purely biological level, that's what we were primed to think.
Yeah.
You know, but our higher consciousness, like we know better, right? Even though our body tells us to do one thing, sometimes like we know better, like as a like.
But what do you think? This is gonna be a complete stray from what we were saying.
Yeah.
But I'll write that question down so we don't stray on a tangent
Yeah,
too
don't.
much. But I just want to quickly ask this question as well.
As a what was I gonna say?
So, you go the fucking brains. Oh yeah. What's the benefit of being conscious?
Yeah. Okay.
So I wanted to ask, where because we're such a different civilization than we were back then.
Yeah.
Where do you think that like ancestral knowledge came from? Because we all have unique brains. They all came from our parents, but they're completely unique to each other. So where do you think we get this deeply ingrained idea from? Is it just from living in this society and we just pick it up as we go? Like, do you think we're born with that understanding? We just can't realize it?
I think so, bro. I think like what makes you like this as a baby, right? You don't know anything, but like you feel like, let's say hunger, right? You feel hungry, and you know you have to eat.
Yeah.
Or you get thirsty and you know you have to drink water.
But that's like purely physical.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah. But I'm talking about like the idea of so you're saying like for example
like it's ingrained in our like DNA, like it's just in there, right? Okay, so I think we've talked about this before, where I've said that inside of us there's two people. I'll explain this concept. Maybe it's a bit of a tangent, but it'll come back to this. So this is just from my perspective. Might not make any sense. If you guys have any questions on it, feel free to ask. I've been talking a lot in this video, but yes.
I think I'm fucking interviewing
I don't know. Like this is like my life's work. You know what I mean? But yeah, pretty much inside of us, I feel like there are two people. There's kind of like the doer and the auditor, if that makes sense. There's something that, and I think that one is our primal kind of instinctual side, right? It's just like, and then there's the other side, which is our higher level of consciousness, right? I think that, so this goes into reincarnation and shit, but I think that that this higher consciousness that we have, and let me give you guys a good example of that higher consciousness and our primal instincts coming at play, right? There's like, let's say that you get angry, right? and when you get angry, you like someone bumps into you on the street or some shit, and like instincts kick in and we're like, "God, fuck this dude, I'm gonna knock him out," right? But then there's something inside of us is like, that's not a good idea, right? Who the fuck, like how are you arguing with yourself? There has to be someone to argue with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And it's like, who are we arguing with? So I think with any action, it goes instinct, action, instinct, thought, then action, right? That's what leads to the action. It goes instinct and then thought and then leads to the action. In some scenarios, it's mainly instinct.
Yeah.
In other scenarios, it's mainly thought. In most scenarios, there's like a bit of both, and that's what leads to the action. So let's say, for example,
That's an interesting point.
yeah, it's
Because for some things it's purely instinctual, and then there's the action.
exactly.
Like, things that are deeply ingrained in us, like for example pain, like hunger, something like that. Like if I'm touching a hot stove, I'm not going to think and be like, I should probably take my hand off.
Yeah, exactly. It's
It's
just
just
being done because why? In order to you need to be alive in order to reproduce. Does that make sense? And if you're being in pain, our bodies are like, we don't like pain.
Yeah.
Because if we feel pain, then our body's under threat, and if we're under threat, then we might die, and if we would die, then we can't produce.
Can't produce, yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think yeah. So like you see shit like even in today's society, like why do I keep saying in today's society? But like even fucking shit like when you get angry, right? Like sometimes you get angry, but you're calm enough to the point where you can like you can de-escalate, and you can be like, yo, alright, let's chill out, let's talk about this. But other times, there's times when you get angry and you just see straight red, right? At that point, it's similar scenario, but one, the instinct is stronger than the thought,
Yeah.
right? And the other one, your thought and your instinct are pretty similar, or your thought is stronger. I think in order to master your, like, you never want to run just purely based off instinct, because that can get you into a lot of trouble. Like I said, there's things that our body wants, and there's things that are, like, we know that's not good for us, and because we know it's not good for us, we just, like, we should be able to kind of not do that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Fighting, for example. That's just the only example that I have right now. Find something. And, like, even, yeah, that's pretty much the only example I can talk about, like, cheating and shit. Even cheating, right? Like, you don't actually go into that situation thinking you're going to cheat. Right? Most of the time. I mean, I'm sure there are people that do. But most of the time, even when you cheat, and this is what I mean, like it's a primal instinct is lust, right? You wanting to have sex or whatever, or fuck, is lust. But then there's, let's say you're in a committed relationship, right? And you kind of know in the back of your mind that, bro, this is not good, but you still do it anyway. Why? Because at that point, your lust is stronger than your rational thinking.
So it goes from, well, like the instinct, and then...
So at that point, it's like 90% instinct, 10% thought.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like there's I think it's like American Indian, like a Native American saying where they say that there's two wolves inside of us, and whichever wolf you feed is the one that gets stronger. And like that makes sense, right? Like even on a purely basic level, our bodies are primed to learn off every experience, right? So if like it's kind of like training a dog. If the dog thinks that it's okay to pee on the ground, and you just never discipline the dog, then it's just going to continue to pee because it thinks that it's okay. Right? Same thing with us. If we drink or whatever, and we don't check ourselves until something bad happens, like sometimes our body's like crying, like fucking, like you have a headache, like you have a hangover, or you vomit or whatever, but we still keep going on it. Like, go through. Sometimes and look, it's not always the best, because sometimes it's shit like a girl cheated on you and now you'll never fucking talk to girls again, that kind of shit. Or you know, like a dog bit you one time when you were younger, now you don't want to hang out with dogs.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, I didn't get bitten, but fucking trauma. But or like it can be anything. You know, one time you had a bad experience with this one thing, and now you'll never do that again.
Yeah.
Right? But all of that stuff is primed for us to survive, because then like we grow a kind of fondness to certain things, certain genres of music or certain foods, right? Like you ate chili one time and you cried so you never eat chili again, or you just keep eating chili and now you just love it. Like it's just something, it's a flavor that's kicked into you, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that you vibe with, and because of that, you got doors open that you would otherwise have missed out, right? So I think it's the reason that I say all of this is that this is important to be mindful of, because it impacts us day to day, right? And I think so you don't want to run purely off instinct, right? In order to increase the power of our thoughts, that's through mindfulness. And maybe that goes back to the first video, but pretty much if we're mindful of the situation that we're in, then even if you're about to cheat on your missus or some shit, right? Bro, this is not a good idea. Because you're mindful, you're not letting you see it for what it is. This is just lust. This is temporary.
Yeah.
This feeling will fade, and I'll be left in a world of misery. I'll be hurting people. I'll be doing this, doing that, doing this, and there will be consequences to my actions. And this ties all back into happiness, because at that point, that's when you realize, or you might not, but when you practice mindfulness, you kind of realize that this lust that I'm chasing is just a primal thing, and therefore it's not going to end in. And it's situation to situation. This chase of lust isn't always a bad thing, right? It's a primal thing, but it's about being mindful of the situation. If you're doing it with your girlfriend and you're not cheating, right? Then there's no problems. There's no social consequence. Maybe just wrap up or whatever. I guess is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, there's no social consequence, and the kind of fulfillment that you get from that is a lot longer lasting than that little chance encounter, that one night stand, at the cost of all of that. You know what I mean? But if you're single and you're free and you're having one, it doesn't. There's no real consequence. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah,
what I'm
that
trying to say?
makes sense.
But yeah, yeah, and so all of this, what was I going to say? Happiness. Yeah, I think it's about being mindful of knowing that this happiness that we're kind of chasing it shouldn't be from a primal perspective. That true happiness isn't found in these things. I'm talking about true happiness, right? Not sure. There's happiness in a lot of things. There's happiness in eating well. There's happiness in listening to a good song. There's happiness in going for a run. But I'm talking about what I'm trying to get at is true happiness. Something that doesn't dissipate over time. You know what I mean? Maybe I should have said that right at the start before I went into my big spiel. But true happiness is my life goal. What I want to find in my life. And I think that to get true happiness, it's a mind state. It's not found in all these physical things. Maybe we can just cut out all the other stuff.
Yeah, just talk and whatever's good, whatever's
starting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think true happiness is found in. True happiness is a mindset, not found in clothes, cars, women, money, material things. To fill that void, it has to be filled from within. That's with mindset. So, put the question back to you. What is happiness to you?
Damn, bro. I think we both answered it, right? And then we just started talking about something else.
Did you? I don't know. What do you think, bro? What do you think your happiness is? And have you experienced, I'm talking about true happiness, right?
Yeah.
Do you think you've experienced it before?
True happiness. I'm gonna say yes, man. In a lot of different places in my life.
Can you give me a few examples?
True happiness? True happiness for me comes from, I wouldn't say doing nothing, but enjoying the smallest, just ordinary shit in your life, pretty much. There's times where I'd just be driving, listening to music, and I'll find myself just smiling at whomever, just fucking beaming, just cause, just the fact that I can drive, the fact that I can blast music as loud as I fucking want, and I'm in this vehicle just speeding down the road, bro. And then there's times when I'm at the park, same thing, just sitting on a rock or something, getting some sunlight, same thing. But I think I've experienced true happiness in moments, but not in a continuous, a flowing state. I don't know if that's even possible. I mean, I'd assume it is, right? To be in a constant state of happiness, I guess, yeah. But I think to get to that point of finding happiness is your only your only mindset. You would have to be free from attachment of literally like everything, including eating, including having sex, everything.
Do you think that that eating is an attachment rather than just something that we need, like once again that primal thing, right?
I think it is, bro. Like, for example, if I gave you the choice of eating a block of like a protein mush compared to eggs and Benedict, which one are you going to pick? And for what reason? You know, like, I feel like there's an attachment behind that as well.
Do you think it's the actual act of eating, or it's the choice of food where we get attached?
That's a good question. I feel like you can get attached to eating. Like a lot of people do get attached to eating. Like you'll find people like depression eating, having episodes like things like that.
But
Right?
is that from like it's like something deeper, like a deeper state of unhappiness, where like, and even then, because at that point, your true happiness isn't found in the food.
Yeah, that's true. But what you'll find from that is just straight dopamine, which is obviously not happiness.
Yeah.
But that's the shit that I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about dopamine, right? All these little things that you do, such as eating, such as playing video games, such as smoking, drinking, whatever, right? That little piece of satisfaction that you get at the end of that is purely from dopamine. And I think when you condition your brain to a point where, like, if you're in a continuous state of, how to put this, like if your brain is free of dopamine for a long time, the tiniest hit of dopamine feels like a fucking roller coaster, right? Whereas if you're living in a life where you have all this constant input of dopamine, like you're scrolling through Instagram, you're scrolling through Snapchat, whatever, right? And you're just constantly being hit with a smile here because of like a joke. You see a nice car, you see a house that you want, right? Just constantly one off the other. I think being on that level of dopamine, when you come back down from it, is when you so-called become sad, right? Because now there's no input of dopamine. Now you're just coasting. And then again, what you do is you're looking for that hit again, right? Back to the phone, back to whatever distracts you from having no dopamine. So there was this one, I don't even know if it's a study, but I remember seeing this video on YouTube about a guy who did a dopamine detox, right? So he would, I think it just was purely studying because like no one likes studying, right? So what he would do is like, I think he locked his phone in something and he gave his passcode to his girlfriend or something. So he didn't touch his phone for I think a week or 2 weeks, something like that. And he found that the second that he opened the phone up again and he was going through it, when he put the phone down, he found that he was addicted to it. Like he could not go that day without coming back to it. Because that one hit from dopamine he got from opening the phone on that day, it was just so much for his brain to handle. It couldn't register what else could give him that level of happiness, right? So I think if you can find something that that isn't, what's the word? External is a good word. If you can find something internal that can give you that level of satisfaction and like appreciation, I think that's almost a surefire way to have either moments of happiness or find a continuous way of happiness. Just the most simple way I can put it is to be appreciative, or actually, I feel like the more okay you are with having nothing, the more you deserve or will receive. That's probably a weird way to put it. But I find that the people that don't need anything in their life are often the people that feel like they have the most. And then the people that have the most often feel like they have nothing at all. It's just like,
that's what first world problems are.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like no matter how many clothes I have in my closet, we're always out there shopping for another shirt or another pair of pants. Whereas there's kids all over the world who have like one shirt, one pair of shorts, and they're just enjoying outside, man. They're just chilling with their friends, and it's such a different, like such different spectrums that we find happiness in. It's kind of like it's mind-boggling, man. But I guess it depends on your your life circumstances. Well, obviously they don't have access to the kinds of things that we do, so maybe they're just not receptive to that, like shopping sprees, finding happiness and shit like that. But what I've also found is, like using parents as an example, right? I'm not too sure about my parents' situation when they got here, but I know for a fact they didn't have nearly as much as they have today, right? But coming from Sri Lanka to here, I think when you move from a country like that to a first world country, you start to take on materialism just because you're in a culture of materialism.
You're like immersed in it.
Yeah, like it becomes a state of being, and no one can really escape it, if that makes sense. It's not. I'm not gonna say it's a bad thing because, like, I'm materialistic as well to a certain point, right? But I think your circumstance definitely affects your level of materialism as well. And the more materialistic you are, as Zuru said as well, you're just constantly in this rat race that never ends. It's like filling a cup with no bottom, right? You're just constantly filling it with money, with whatever you like, and it just keeps falling out of the bottom, and it never gets to the top. Yeah, I don't even know if I answered the question, but it's just finding happiness in moments that you don't need anything external, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's probably the main takeaway from this video, I guess, is that happiness is internal. It has to be internal, right? And I think that true happiness, or maybe it's not even happiness, because I guess this is just wordplay, right? I don't have the vocabulary to even piece it together, like, or to express what I truly feel. But
I don't think anyone really can verbalize exactly what gives them happiness. And you can only have a certain idea about it. But when it comes to actually telling somebody this makes me happy on a level that is unparalleled, it's so difficult to put into words.
So difficult, because like I think maybe fulfillment is the word rather than happiness, right? You want to be, and maybe that's more sustainable as well, because just like sadness is an extreme, happiness is an extreme as well, right? Like there's times like now, right? I'm not particularly sad, nor am I particularly happy. I'm just cruising, you know what I mean? And I think that's a good state to be in, honestly. Like where you're just cruising. There's not really anything that's bothering you, but it's not like you're not happy. It's just that you're just positive. You're just cruising, just going about your day. Whereas like there are moments when you're laughing, like kicking it, and that's when you reach happiness, right? So maybe it's fulfillment is what I'm trying to say when I say happiness. When I say true happiness, it's a sense of fulfillment.
Do you think when someone smiles, it's because of they get that sense of fulfillment from something?
I think so.
Yeah.
Right. Like you like let's say like you've worked hard on a car, right? Your car, you worked hard on it. At the end of it, and let's say the engine works, right?
Still broken, by the way. Still broken.
Like, what are you gonna feel at that point? Is it happiness or fulfillment?
I'd say a mixture of both, man. But then again, I'm not sure what either one is on that deep level.
On that
but
deep level.
I'd say it's a mixture of both. Like I'll be extremely fulfilled that amount of work and effort paid into something, and also be happy that the car starts. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's something that we've got to look at. But even then, it's not. Yeah, the main takeaway, I guess, is that it's not found in things outside of us. Like people with millions and billions. This is actually a very interesting point. So, 2019 was when the church bombing happened in Sri Lanka, right? And there was so if you think that money buys you happiness, it really doesn't. Because so even the ASOS founder, like I think all of his kids died or something in that moment. It was like 4 of his kids or something died in that, like in that, right? And I think in today's society we think that when we have status, when we have power, when we have money, we feel like invincible kind of, right? There's like a shroud of like, it's like a shield around you. That's what you feel, right? But it's false, right? And that's when you realize that you're just as mortal as everyone else. And he, like, the grief that he felt was the same grief that any father would have felt when they lost their kids. Right? The money didn't change that. You know what I mean? The power that he had didn't change that because he still, he must have felt shattered when he lost his, like words can't describe how a parent feels when they lose their, kids. It's just not how it's meant to be, but yeah, like, I think what you were saying earlier when you said that, and maybe and in Buddhism, right, like the whole point is, at least my interpretation of the deeper level of Buddhist philosophy, I guess, is to rid of all attachments, right? And and when you get rid of all attachments, that's the end to suffering. Like, that's the answer on how to end suffering. That was Buddha's quest. And maybe it's not chasing fulfillment or happiness or finding a true happiness that's our goal either. It's how to end suffering, because that brings about the truest sense of fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
Of like the truest sense of peace or happiness or serenity or whatever it is when you get rid of what's not causing you happiness. It's suffering.
Yeah.
Right? I
But
guess
suffering is a choice at some points in time. Man.
that's why I said it's a mindset.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, if you want me to sum this video up in 2 words, or in a few words, don't be sad, be happy.
Don't be sad, cunt. You're mad, cunt.
You're doing crying over there, man. Look at you crying over there. No, I'm playing.
I'm not sure, bro. I honestly don't know what direction this video is even taking.
Neither do I.
Started off with happiness, went through tribalism. I don't even know if we're going to keep all that, but
Maybe we'll have to target something else. Just thoughts.
just thoughts, yeah. Maybe this is just a video on thoughts. Pretty much, we don't really have any keys to happiness. I guess the goal is to find that in life. And I guess from a Buddhist perspective, it's to rid of all attachments, right? When you're rid of all attachments, then you lessen your suffering. And maybe like enlightenment or nirvana or whatever is found when you reach that mindset of true happiness, of true peace, right? Rather than them saying that, like, you just see things so clearly because you're not attached, and when you're not attached, there's no kind of what's the word? There's like no glasses on. Does that make sense? Like everyone's wearing glasses that are tinted with the experience of their life, right? Some kind of attachment, whether it's a religious attachment, whether it's an attachment to your family, to your friends, to people outside of us, even attachment to oneself. But all these things kind of tint your focus, right? And when your focus is tinted, you don't see things for what they are, right? And when you don't see things for what they are, I don't think that you can actually find true peace because you're not. It's not clear. Like it's not clear. It's kind of like what we were saying before, right? Where you miss out on a whole range of experiences just because of your attachment to a certain way, or because you think a certain way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's one thing to something about.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, right? Do you think there's any positives to being attached to anything? Like, for example, right? We obviously have an attachment to our parents, everybody. Do you think that's a beautiful thing in a way? Or do you think it's any sort of attachment?
I don't.
Like, obviously it's going to lead to suffering eventually, right? Like, the fact that I'm attached to my parents, the day they pass,
yeah, that would
it's
pass
gonna,
or we
yeah,
pass.
like it's inevitable for everybody, right? So just having that attachment is, you know, in your mind is going to lead to suffering one day. Yet you hold on to that attachment because they're your parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a beautiful thing in a way.
I think it is as well, bro. I think, and this is a point that I didn't understand until maybe like about a year ago when I talked to things that he really made it like clear for me. But
Yeah.
he pretty much said, and this is what I think as well now. It's not about letting go of your attachments. It's being mindful of the attachments. You know, what is the and he said this in a different way. So he said that two girls go on the road and they get hit by a car, right? One was his daughter, the other one just a random. Why does he cry for his daughter? Why does he not cry for the other girl? Right? Even though it's the same thing. The only thing that changes his feelings towards this person is that attachment. Right?
So
But
in a
you-
sense, like, sorry, man, in a sense that attachment sort of like proves a certain level of humanity. Right?
I think so. But it's not like he doesn't feel sad for this girl, right? Like we
Yeah.
see, like for the other girl that passed away, like you hear something bad happen inside, you're like, damn, I don't wish that on anyone, you know. But I think, look, on a normal human level, it's definitely hard, I think, to kind of stray away from this attachment because we can't even see that we're attached, you know, like. But once, if you're mindful of the attachment and what that actual attachment is, and the attachment isn't your mom, right? It's not cutting off your mom. That's not what's going to end your attachment. Right? It's about being mindful of what's the bond between you and her, right? If you know that one day, and this sounds really sad and grim, but it's just realistic, right? Like you were saying earlier. Well, one day in your life, everything that you've acquired will leave you, or you will leave you. Your parents, your friends, your family, you'll have to leave you.
Yeah.
Or it'll leave you, right? But kind of, I think, and this is a different topic altogether. I think that this goes into like life and death and all that shit as well, which is something that we definitely have to think about. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is that, like, when you're aware, okay, so let's say for example, there are some, like, you hear these stories, right, of people that just grind their whole life, like they barely give time to their family, they work like 60, 70 hour weeks, it's always work, and then on their deathbed they start realizing, fuck, I wish I spent more time with my kids, right? I think, what is that really? Maybe it's not attachment, but I think it's a lack of mindfulness of what truly matters, right? When you die, you're never like, fuck, I wish I did another shift.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, oh fuck, I wish I passed that exam. You don't give a fuck about that. You know, you're never like, oh damn, I wish I spent an extra hour studying.
So you basically, like, in a way, you just prioritize your attachments.
You prioritize, and you're mindful that even though, so I think you're mindful and then you prioritize.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like my family, even though they're gonna leave me, these are important people too.
Yeah.
Right? But I still will feel suffering at the end of this.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the thing. Like, living a lifestyle that is 100% free of attachment from everything is
It's not for normal people.
it's definitely not for normal people.
I think that's why people become monks and stuff.
Yeah.
Because
But
they're
but
free,
do you
or they should
think do you think all monks have 100%?
No way, bro. That's fucking monks these days, bro. They do it for a business, bro. Like they gain some kind of respect from being a monk.
Do you think anybody has achieved that?
I think the whole multiple stories about that. Maybe even Jesus and all of them as well, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that every single we see like Jesus and Sipples, all these people are enlightened beings in some way or another, right? I don't really I don't think that Buddha's the only, whatever, people like that are like that. I don't really fuck with that. I think all these people are enlightened. You see, like the Hindu gods or Hindu, Rama, Krishna. I think that's the name. I don't even know. Jainism, like all these kind of people from these yogis. I'm sure there are people out in the fucking bushes in India, right? Out in the forest that are devoid of every attachment, right? Or close to. They're definitely living a freer life than us. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, but they don't come out because they don't crave the attention. They don't need the attention. The attention does nothing for them. Their path is something that goes beyond what what we crave. You know, I post a story on Instagram when I do something. Why? Because I crave a little bit of attention. It's just a human. It's that human need to find affection, attention, affirmation. You know, like we crave that as people, and the social media allows it to happen. Not just social media, and I think even like fame,
Yeah.
right? Like, what is fame? Fame is, if you think about it, it's a bullshit concept.
Yeah.
Right? People think that like, oh, when I get famous, then I'll be happy. Right? But the thing is that on a purely primal level, once again, fame is just affection, attention, and all that shit on steroids, right? But once again, even them, they're not happy.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
Completely.
and then yeah, exactly. Like, oh, paparazzi, this. I don't want to be famous anymore. I just want to go to a store. I just want to drive my car.
Isn't that what you became famous for?
Like, you know, like your whole life you chase something, and those are the people you have to look at. Like, if you, I'm asking you guys to suss out Jim Carrey's videos. He talks a lot about
Yeah.
this. He's very spiritual and like.
He's very spiritual in a very low key way. Like,
Yeah.
he will say the most bizarre shit, but he'll make it a joke, so it won't even register your brain.
Won't even
But if you take the shit he says seriously, it actually means a lot.
means a lot, and
Yeah.
he's like insight into
Just everything, just
bro,
life in
he's-
general.
his
Yeah.
insight into
Pretty
life
amazing.
and fame. Like, these are the people that you have. Like, there's no point in me, someone that's not famous at all, telling you that fame isn't going to get you shit. There's no point in me, as someone who doesn't have that much money, saying money won't buy you. Like money doesn't bring you happiness.
Yeah.
But we have to look at these people that are examples, Jim Carrey, you know, whoever, like famous people that are rich, and you still see them not happy. At least not truly happy. You know what I mean? And that means that those aren't the answers. And I'm not saying don't acquire money. You need money to live. It's just the system that we live in.
Yeah, so sometimes you learn more by observing what not to do than learning what to do.
Exactly.
So that's a way to go about it as well.
But it's
Just,
just
just
about,
observe things that don't make you happy and do less of them. It sounds so stupid to say, but
no, I think you're honest.
yeah, if you just sit back and observe things that make you unhappy and do less of them, you might find yourself, without even consciously thinking about what makes you happy, you'll get there or move closer towards it.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause we're so far away from that true happiness, and I think in order to get closer to that, we need to stray away from consumerism, materialism, and all that stuff. That's a bit extreme. I'm not really trying to do all that,
So,
but I think it's about being mindful that, you know, if these people have this much, and they're still not true, and they're still suffering, right? Like, it's just, like famous people, like popping, like you said, kept popping pills, like drinking, alcoholics, whatever. Like Johnny Depp, for example, right? At least in his prime, multi-millionaire, Pirates of the Caribbean era. But apparently, like, he was spending like 54K or some shit a month on fucking wine.
yeah.
That's
Uh,
that word has to cut out. So,
where's-
third video, third time.
Once it makes an appearance,
Yeah,
it
has to.
everything.
But yeah, that is not right. And like, there's actually something that's really interesting.
There's a difference between enjoying certain material things and having a bizarre addiction to them and like being dependent on it in your life. You know?
legit.
Like spending 54K on wine is like some weird shit.
He's got that power, he's got fame, he's got money, he's got. If you're dropping 54K, you definitely got money, right?
But he's still trying to run through something.
He's still trying to escape. And there's a maybe some of you guys have seen the Netflix series The OA, but the director of that and the main actor, her name's Britt Marling. She is super insightful on this stuff, and she does an interview, and in that interview she says she talks about like antidepressants, right? and this is the point that I made to a few friends as well. Like, it made so much sense when she said it. So she said that so why do people take so people get depression or some kind of anxiety or distress or stress, right? Because there's factors in their life that are making them that way, right? You don't just get sad over nothing. You're sad because there's something in your life that's making you sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people think that the answer to that is antidepressants. Right. So you hop on this antidepressant,
But thing is that it doesn't actually fix the problem in your life. That problem's still there. That problem is still there.
Yeah.
But this just makes you numb to it. You know what I mean? And that's so similar to what is happening. I mean, for the Johnny Depp example, I guess. And it's we find a way to kind of medicate, whether it's through antidepressants or through alcohol or through purchasing or through eating. Like whenever we feel a certain way, we try to medicate that, because the human condition is to always want to feel comfortable. When it's cold, you turn on the heater. When it's hot, you turn on the fan. You know, why is that? It's because I think that goes back to the if we're suffering, then we're like our bodies think we're under attack, and that puts our kind of mortality at risk. But yeah, if like in that kind of situation, instead of trying to medicate, try to figure out what that root cause is, right? Because your sadness is just a symptom. Does that make sense? The sadness is just a symptom of what's actually making you feel like shit. So if you can think about it, find what's making you feel like shit, then get rid of that, or at least address it. Obviously, like sometimes people like bro, my family makes me feel like shit. Like you can't get rid of your fucking family, right? But sometimes it's just as simple as sitting with them. And I can't speak for everyone. It's just like situations are different. But sometimes it's just as simple as being like, yo, like the way that you guys are acting, it's not really like this is making me feel a certain way, and this needs to change, because otherwise, I need to, you know, like you need to do what's best for you at the end of the day, because like does that kind of make sense? What I'm saying? Like you need to address the core issue of what's making you feel a certain way, and that takes, I think, a lot of contemplation,
A lot of insight.
mindfulness, insight, because we tend to address just the symptoms. That's how it's kind of like even in medicine, bro. Like they diagnose shit based on the symptoms, not based on the root cause. Does that make sense? Like your throat's
Like
sore. Yeah, like your throat's sore.
Yeah, they just numb it until your body can fix it.
Fix it, exactly. Like for example, right? Like I got eczema, and back when I was younger, it used to be like a lot worse, right? And all they told me, like I would know because of my rashes and shit. So they just put moisturizer on the rashes. But when I go to Sri Lanka, right, the humid climate, like I have nothing. I don't need moisturizer, nothing. I'm just fully moist. I'm just fully like loving life. And then as soon as I come back here, my shit's all dry again. Like, you know, I have to put cream on. So this cream isn't really the fix to the eczema, right? It was something more internal, and I'm guessing it's something more like the climate or the weather that I couldn't fix.
Actually, just skin. Just skin.
Yeah, as in like it's my skin's reaction to the climate, right? But and obviously we can't change that here. So at this point, like now it's a lot less. But like I've seriously contemplated like fuck, like should I just move to Brisbane or some shit? You know, just because like it's like humid climate. I won't have hay fever. Hay fever kills me every spring. Like and like I'm like bro, like why am I suffering so much? Like for three months out of the year to suffer, that's like a quarter of your life. That's fucked. You know what I mean? If you actually think about it, like why suffer for like 20 years if you're living for 80 years? You know, you just got to do what's good for you. And obviously, I don't know, maybe that's a bit extreme. Moving to another state or whatever, just to avoid hay fever. But you know, if you can do small things to fix it, that's fine. But I guess it's just situational based. I don't know, bro.
Yeah. I had another tip that came up as well. Oh yeah, so if you want to, in a way, combat attachment, and as a human finding, doing anything in your power to find comfort, right? That's what we're all hardwired to do. But if you want to override that and you want to actually see how powerful you can be, see how strong your mind can be, is just purposefully throw yourself into uncomfortable situations. It's like, obviously in the moment it's not desirable, but like for example, one really simple thing that anyone can do is instead of hopping in the shower and cranking that shit to the hot side, just go cold and see, like that shit will humble you so quick. But it will like do that on a consistent basis, and you will find yourself like not being attached to that comfortability of being in warm water, right? And that's just like a small example, but you can apply it to so many things, right? Like, I don't know, man. If you're uncomfortable studying for 2 hours, study for 3. Do it a few times. And until the point where that uncomfortability becomes comfortable, you now have a new neuron pathway in your brain where it's like, okay, this isn't so bad. Like, I don't need to have hot water now. I can go cold, I can go hot, it doesn't matter. And if you do that for like almost anything in your life, you're now okay with having, like, I'm comparing cold water to having nothing and hot water to having everything, right? You're now okay with having nothing, but you're also okay with having everything you want,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, if you can do that in just almost any instance in your life, just find some way that you can be uncomfortable. And just do something small every day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. A cold shower is definitely the easiest one you can do. Like at the end of your shower, just fucking throw that shit to the cold one. Just cup it for like half a minute or something.
Yeah. I think it's about finding gratitude as well. Like my dad gives a signal, like it's a Sinhalese metaphor. I'll just do a translation. It's like so it's pretty much like if you sleep on a mat on the floor, then there's nowhere for you to fall, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the kind of like that's a metaphor to say like if you're used to living with nothing, then you're fine in any situation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas
Exactly.
if you're always sleeping on the bed, then you can fall off. That's the kind of example, you know.
Facts, man.
And it's not that, like, that doesn't mean that you have to sleep on the floor. It just means that you're just good in any situation. You're good in cold water or hot water, you know. And I think that kind of was a very interesting point. Like it's crazy that these kinds of sayings were made like hundreds of years ago by like
We
some
keep
old
coming
dude.
back to that point. Like these phrases just fly past our head. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, I've heard that 1,000,000 times. Like, stop saying that shit to me. And then when you actually think into it, it's deep on a different level, man. But they've summed it up so perfectly in a few
So
words.
perfect.
It's just incredible, man. Like, yeah, I think, damn, I've got nothing else in my brain. Man. That is all I've got today.
I think so. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with everything.
So that was the end of the vid. Thank you guys so much for watching. We know this one was a bit more loose than our usual structured questionnaires and type style. So let us know if you prefer this type of style over that. What else I gotta say? Yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. All the support you guys have been giving us. We really want suggestions. Like if you definitely want to see this type of video, where we're just chilling and just talking, just going with whatever comes up, right? So if you want to add anything to what we said, or we said something wrong, again, hit us up, let us know that. Anything to add?
Not really. No, I think I think we'll be incorporating more of just like day life shit as well.
Yeah, we did want to do that. Yeah. So
Did you
we
want
want
to
to.
talk about
Yeah. So what we wanted to, our end goal is to be doing this podcast from different countries, different locations, take on different hobbies and passions on the way, right? So we want to kind of bring you guys on the journey as well. See our life unfold. We want to see your life unfold as well. So we're going to incorporate maybe the scenery a bit more, whatever we're doing during the day. Just whatever we find interesting, we just throw on a video as well. So maybe you guys can get a bit more of a glimpse into spiritual life, day-to-day life, whatever it is.
Other than that, I just want to once again say thank you. Hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, until next time, I guess.